see the bigger picture. He can see why is it that I'm missing the bus? Is it something that happens all the time? I mean, we can all miss the bus, but if it's like a consistent thing, maybe you have a thing with time, and you should work on that. So all these things are very valuable. In this society, people are spending thousands of kroners on psychologists and lifestyle coaches and career advisors and these things. What they're looking for is a guru. It's too long for a small child to sit still. I'm actually quite impressed at over half an hour. That's pretty good. So what they're actually looking for is a guru. It's a universal principle that's always there, the teacher and the taught. But we've kind of lost it because there is a general mood of exploitation in our society. We try to squeeze as much as possible out of life. That means authorities are to be questioned, and that means this principle kind of gets covered, So it would be beneficial, we would think, to try and revitalize that principle and try to dig it up. But that means we have to acknowledge that detachment is a universal value, that we have to detach ourselves from this idea that I will get however much I can get from life, that's what I'll get, looking out for number one. That principle we have to kind of let go, and we have to change ourselves in such a way that we're looking out for others rather than ourselves. And that is done through knowledge. That if we know that the real way to achieve happiness is by actually making others happy, then this transformation can take place. Now, if you want to do it like on a mass scale, like society scale, there's only really one place to start, and that's with yourself. And that's the good news, is that if you just let that transformation happen within yourself, then you will experience that everywhere. It may not be that everyone else will work on that same way, but just by living like that yourself, we will experience that others in dealing with us will have a tendency to adopt that same mood, because it is kind of inspirational. So we talk about the difference between constitutional identity and acquired identity. And here, constitutional identity is referring to this eternal principle, and the acquired identity is referring to the temporary forms of our life, that at this point you're a little girl and then suddenly you're the mother and you have a little girl, and what happened? It just happened. But the constitutional identity is just service. There's always some service going on. And the acquired identity is in what form, in what situation is it that we're doing it. But it becomes much less confusing when you can see that there's a universal principle in all of these situations. Then there's no real stress, because the stress comes when we're thinking too much about these changes. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if? You're still the same person. You still just, whatever you have, that's what you work with. And if you work with it in this mood of service, then you will be happy. It's not a matter of, it's not an opinion, it's a fact of reality. That's how it works. And you can see that everyone who is able to work in such a way, they have exactly the same result. It's exactly the same experience. It's like, I use usually the example of exercise. It doesn't really matter if you believe in it or not. If you believe in exercise, maybe you will go a little further when you're at the fitness center and you will get into it a little more. But the fact remains that if you engage in exercise, it is healthy for your body. It doesn't matter if you know what muscle groups are working or whatever. If you eat healthy food, it will be good for you, whether you understand what's going on in the digestive tract or not. So in the same way, if you engage in these activities, it will purify our consciousness, regardless if we actually understand it, if we believe in it, or what. It's universal. It's a science. It's the science of consciousness. So, and the great news is that it's free. So if it doesn't work, you get your money back. But it may be simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Some of the simplest things can be very difficult, right? So that's why we do what we're doing right now. This Sunday feast is basically association, because that's how everything happens. If whatever you associate with, those qualities you take on. We take the example of an iron rod. If you put it in fire, it will gain all the propensities of fire. It will act like fire, even though it's an iron rod. So in the same way, if we, with all our contaminated mind and our selfish tendencies and all these things that are running around inside our head, if we come here where the program just is about purification, the music is designed for this purification of consciousness, the topics that we're talking about is designed to acknowledge this process and thereby purify ourselves. The food is prepared with some guidelines to, and it's offered, so it's kind of spiritualized, and that also is purifying for our consciousness. We will purify our consciousness. We will take that on our person, and then we will go out and give it to others. So the more you associate, the more this will happen. So there are many things that we're doing in our spiritual life, like we're chanting with our chanting beads and meditation that we spend a significant amount of time on. And I'm studying, and others are distributing the books that I'm studying, and so on and so on. But the main thing is the association. With the association, we will be successful, because we will end up doing the right activities. Without this association, we will not be successful, because you can't really do anything on your own. That's when life gets difficult, is when you feel alone. And you can feel alone among a lot of people, right? When there's no real connection. That's what happens when we get distracted by these externals, like these temporary manifestations, is that the relationship is kind of hampered. It's kind of interrupted, because it becomes about the externals, not about, that's like the businessman. Why is he on his third wife? He's very successful. It's because he thinks that just by getting her a nice house, he's done his job, and he's on the job until like 10 in the evening, and he thinks, no, but she's got all these things and all these dresses and jewelry and the house, and he comes home and she's gone, because there's no relationship, because he forgot the main thing. He forgot why he's doing all of it, just because there was so much of the external to deal with. So this happens all the time, and that's why it's a little sad, I think, when we hear our politicians always trying to solve problems by material growth. They have growth packages, and we have to get the economy moving, like we were talking about earlier today, that George Bush, after the 9/11 attacks happened, his message to the people, he went on the television and had a message to the people. His message was, shop. Don't stop shopping. It's not like pray or be there for each other, or we have to stronger. No, start shopping. That was his message, because we have to keep the economy rolling. How can you be happy like that? You know, you can't be happy like that. No, you have to acknowledge, see, it's not a matter of rich or poor. It's not that you can't be rich. It's just as long as you remember that why have you got all these things is so that you can provide something for others. So you can be something for others. So there are different roles you can play in society, and they all work out if you understand these principles. So basically you have four categories of people. The intellectuals, and the administrators, and the businessmen, and then you have, you know, regular Joe, just the worker, who just has a job and a family, you know. So for them, there's a very simple principle if you want to be successful. If you're an intellectual, you have to be detached. You can't, if I'm sitting here convincing you guys not about externals, and I have a Ferrari out front, that's not going to be very credible. You know, you have some of these televangelists who are going on the television in America, and they're praying for a private jet, and all the people donate to them, and that's not really, no, that's not how it works. That's cheating. So if you want to be an intellectual, you have to be detached. If you want to be an administrator, the principle is protection. If you're moving other people around and you're making decisions on the behalf of other people, you have to make sure they feel safe. They have to trust that you're looking out for them and not just yourself. That's what's happening often in our society, is that decisions are being made on a report from some consultant or a business plan or something, not taking into consideration all the people that it affects. That's why there's a lacking trust of administration and authority. So then the businessman, you can be as rich as you want to, like stinky, filthy rich. You just have to give something back, just something in charity. If someone's super rich, nobody bats an eye if he gives back in charity. Like recently, not so long ago, this Bill Gates guy, he donated like a huge sum of money for some kind of vaccine program in Africa and some things. And everybody thinks he's great. He's the richest man on the planet, or one of them. But nobody has a problem. Why? Because he's giving something back. So that's the businessman. And then if you're just a regular guy with a regular job, just don't sweat it. That's the principle. That's the greatest principle in the world. Just chill out. Just do your duty. Just don't complain too much, because they're the one with the headaches. You just do your duty, and then you have your value of life. You have that in your friendships, your family, and that's it. So that's the very simple solution. The problem for us is that we want the respect of the intellectuals, we want the influence of the administrators, we want the facilities of the businessman, and we want the complete lack of responsibility of the regular worker. And we think we can get all those things combined because we've been told that you can do it and you're worth it, and we haven't really thought so much about what does that practically mean, right? So that confuses us. This society that we live in is a confusion. It's one big confusion. It's not coming from something solid. It is all about these temporary things. You say something and it sounds good, and then you can sell some products, and then hopefully everything will go great, But it doesn't. We see it doesn't. We can see that it doesn't. People are stressed. People are depressed. People are alcoholics. People are frustrated. They are. If you go on pretty much any news website and look at the comments of any random article, that's not people who are like completely in balance with themselves. They are frustrated. So that's why we need to add something more to our life. We need to add something permanent. This philosophy was written down 5,000 years ago. It was used for as many thousand years as we can kind of see back. We can't see where it comes from. It just disappears into the past. And it's worked for everyone. There's not a person who has ever actually tried to apply this philosophy who's concluded it doesn't work. Even those who have stopped using the philosophy, a few have actually sued us, but they've all said it works. So I can hear there's a sound now. It means I'm done now. Questions and answers later?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. If you have questions, 6 o'clock. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your patience. Shri Gauranga Ki. You want